In the bowels of Middenheim, Archaon conducts his great world-unravelling ritual. In the streets of the fallen city, the last champions of a ruined world, the Incarnates, lead their armies in one last desperate assault. And the narrative turns to the rather mundane struggles of some beastmen. They're doing mediocre things on some unimportant part of the battlefront. Mostly they're getting slaughtered by 3 maimed elves who aren't really paying too much attention. Suddenly, just as it seems that the goaties will contribute in a small way to the flow of battle, a rift tears open the tortured sky, and 2,500 points of Tzeentchian demons scream into reality. Not wanting to wait for the beastmen to, shuffle over a bit, the gibbering tide slaughters their erstwhile allies on their way to get to the juicy flesh of the good guys. Caught in the jaws of unfair storytelling, the beastmen are crushed. And we don't have to waste any more of the narrative on STOP! One war herd remains, led by Beast Lord Mollusk, never chosen of Chaos. The goaties refuse to be treated as a carpet for their more popular Legion buddies any longer. Flipping the bird to the skies, the beastmen turn and make their stand.
And with the stage thus set, we deploy. I've never played demons before and I don't really know what they do, but I notice he's bringing a ton of flyers, which I foresee being a pain in the arse if they get behind me. So I've castled up. You won't see beastmen doing this too often. Basically, I'm hoping to draw out the fast elements of his army and crush him a bit at a time. From the left, which we'll call north, we have the Proxy Razorgore Spirit Host, a Tuskor Chariot, the Wallgore unit with the level 4, another Tuskor Chariot, Razorgore, Beastherd Herd with the General, another Razorgore on this far flank, and the Herdstone with my level 2 and my level 1. They're partying out over here because I want to make it really hard for him to get his screamers at them. The only other thing to mention is that my unit of 30 gore, which you can probably just see poking on here, I'm ambushing because there's not really enough space to put them in my castle. But they're on the board at the moment because I don't really have anywhere else to put them. On Tigris's north flank we have a unit of 6 Screamers and the Blue Scribes. In his centre we have a small unit of Horrors, a big unit of Horrors, a unit of 6 Flamers with the Herald, and another large unit of Horrors. On the south flank there are 2 units of 6 Screamers and the Lord of Change, which is his general. The beastmen won the rights to the first turn, but generously gave it to the demons. I don't know if this was a good idea, but I wanted to lure him towards me, and that's what I did. Unfortunately, Tigris is no fool, and he moved his lines up in good order. And there's his north flank. The Screamers behind the building didn't move, long story, but they thought that my ambushing gore were actually on the board. I had said they were ambushing, but it's so easy to make that mistake. I've been there before, and it's definitely a courtesy to make sure that the only units on the field are the units in play. And I'm a bad man, and I will make sure I don't do this in future. We go into the magic phase, and that's my dispel pool. This is going to be pretty crazy. And it's raining chaos. A unit of horrors appear in front of my lines. I'm going to be honest, not sure that's where I would have put them, but who can guess the labyrinthine mind of Tzeentch? Oh, that's what they were planning. Some pink fire melts 4 or 5 of my gore, and it turns out it's not flaming. What a false advertisement. So yeah, my unit-wide ward save does nothing. So my goats shake their little fists at the skies, but they do get a regen save, which is always nice. In the rest of the phase, spells rain down on us in a torrent, but I manage to block most of them, until a gate to hell opens up and swallows my Razorgore. And we go into Beastman turn 1. Sorry horrors, you've pissed me off. Now it's time to die. Elsewhere, I don't move much. This chariot does move up here. My level 2 jumps into the Beastherd, who are hanging back to give those Screamers trouble, and I plonk a Razorgore up in his face. If the Screamers try to make something of it, I'll get them with the Beastherd or the chariot. And I'm guessing that it's probably enough of a threat that if he doesn't do that, he'll probably waste some magic on it trying to get rid of the Razorgore, rather than my goats, and I like my goats. In the magic phase, the Dark Prince thirsts. And somebody gets Slaanesh a drink because he's thirsty. The Screamers take a wound and could care less. But you may have noticed an absence in this picture. That's right, we invoked the Law of Sod, and he rolled a 6 for his Lord of Change, followed by a 17. And so Vulture Boy is whisked away to go play with Slaanesh. I hope he's wearing protection. But man, just devastating. Oh my goodness, you just feel so sorry for the guy. But at the same time, it didn't happen to me. And it feels so good. But yeah, right here is where I see why people hate the Reign of Chaos table. At the time, I had no idea about the loadout this guy was rocking. And right here is where the game swung from an uphill struggle to more of a level playing field. In the magic phase proper, I cast Curse of Armpit Hair on his Screamers, but roll a 1 for the number of dice I can use, and so fail to cast. I try Bubble Savage Beast on the Woolgore. I roll a 1 for the number of dice I can use and fail to cast. Basically, I forget quite what happens, but I had about a pool of 16 dice, and I rolled a 1 for the dice I could use to cast on about 5 or 6 spells. In the end, I get a Wissons on the Razorgore that ran forward, and Bubble Pans on the Woolgore with a miscast, which wounds both my level 2 and my level 1 and sucks the rest of my dice down the hole. However, after what happened to his general, I am not complaining. The universe has got to try to right itself somehow. In combat, needless to say, we obliterate the horrors and reform to face whatever else he's going to throw at us. We go into Demon's turn 2. Tigris takes the loss of his general in his stride. I was looking for tears, but there was none of it. In fact, I'm pretty sure he whispered just as planned under his breath. Basically, the Screamers in the north fall back, and his south flank wraps around. In the magic phase, Slaanesh is still thirsty, but there's a lot of juice in the Lord of Change, and he only sups a couple of wounds off my Razorgore, which is insanely lucky considering their leadership. And thanks to my general's iron discipline, the Beastherd get off scot-free. In the rest of the magic phase, my Razorgore goes down to a barrage of spells, and my Southern Chariot takes a wound from something. Again, I'm pretty sure it was quite lucky to get away with that. And we go into Beastmen turn 2. The Woolgore and the South Chariot move up to prepare a double charge on the Flamers. The other chariot moves up into the centre to threaten a charge on whatever I like. Maybe lure out some Screamers, or hopefully tank some magic. In the magic phase, the Reign of Chaos lets me summon some demons, but I don't have any models, so I can't. I do, however, grow some armpit hair on this unit of horrors. I cast Wissons on the Beastherd, Pan's Pelt on the Woolgore, and that other card is showing that the Tuskgore and the Woolgore are getting a 6+ regen from all the delicious flame they've been eating. I think I also managed to cast Amber Spear on the northmost Screamer unit, but they passed their ward save. I had about 18 power dice this phase, but I continue with my strategy of rolling 1s for most of the dice I can use to cast spells, because it's what my opponent would least expect. And that's kind of how things look going into Demon's turn 3. Figuring he's got plenty more where they came from, Tigris sacrifices a unit of Screamers to take down the chariot. He does a huge number of wounds, and I roll a huge number of saves. And the chariot stands. That must be a real bummer. Elsewhere, the Screamers flow behind my lines like shoals of deadly fish, whilst the horrors start to close the ring of fire. Magic phase. I forget the Reign of Chaos result, it probably wasn't important. Everything targets my chariots. I think I bonus scroll here, but with all the transmutating beams and gates to hell and walls of flame, they didn't stand a chance. And the Beastmen are suddenly looking a bit threadbare. We go into the shooting phase, and I pop my chalice. Despite being covered in mud, the flamers unleash an unholy deluge on my Woolgore. Ordinarily, their attacks aren't flaming apparently. But very cleverly, the Herald is packing the Banner of the Eternal Flame. The idea being to negate the regen that the flaming attacks often give to the victims. However, instead of a 6+ regen, this now gives the goaties a 4+ ward. So combined with the chalice, it doesn't look like we take any wounds, which is just awesome. And I'm sure he was hoping for better than that. However, as we go into Beastmen turn 3, neither of us are quite sure which way the battle's going. But it's at this moment that my ambushers decide to finally come on. They come on from the south, which is great, and I put them here to put pressure on his centre and protect my Woolgore's juicy flanks. However, I think this might have been a bit of a mistake, because lurking behind this building are the blue scribes, and they hadn't really been doing anything obvious up to this point, and they're out of my sight. I just completely forgot they were there. It would have been awesome to bring the Gore on, cream through them in the next turn, and then hopefully get into the smaller units of horrors in his back lines. But oh well. Without a second thought, the goaties charge home. The Woolgore unit takes 5 casualties from stand and shoot, but their bloods are up and they couldn't care less. In the rest of movement, I'm quite proud of this. The Shadow Shaman dances over to a spot where he can't be charged or flown over by the Screamers. And then, instead of going on a suicide trademark charge, the Razorgore just shifts out of their line of sight, also making it a bit difficult for them to fly over him. In Magic, the Reign of Chaos lets me blow up a wizard to summon a Herald, but he's demonic and it doesn't work on him. I cast Bubble Savage Beast on the Wargore, but roll a 1 for the number of dice I can use to cast it. Seriously, I just give up on ever getting this spell off. I cast Wistons on them instead, and that goes off. And then I cast Wistons on the Beastherd unit, and that goes off. Getting a bit bored of Wistons, I go for an audacious Pit of Shades on one of the Screamer units. But the level 1 just isn't quite up to it. It was close though. So in the end, I stack another Wistons on the Wargore. That unit now has 15 Strength 6 attacks across a 5-wide front, 16 with the Shaman, and then 4 Strength 5 attacks from the Gore behind. The front rank is all Toughness 7, 4+ save, and then a choice of a 6+ parry, a 4+ ward, or 2+ ward for one of them against flaming, or a 5+ regen. Bring it on, Hellspawn. In combat, we slaughter the Screamers, take no damage in return, but they're unbreakable. And because Tzeentch is Ascendant, not unstable. So we all stick around. Over here, the Great Hargase's Shrieking Blade means that no one's afraid of anyone, and Monty and the crew proceed to pummel the Flamers into little smouldering chunks. We both forget that we have to issue a challenge here, but since Twist Skin the Shaman allocated his attack to the Herald and wounded him, we'll say that's what's going on. Obviously, unbreakable, Tzeentch Ascendant, yada yada yada. Going into the Demon turn, the Screamers realise that they haven't really got much in the way of feeding prospects over in the north and turn back to harass the Beastherd. Back to the south, the Ambushing Gore unit finds itself in for a bit of a warm welcome as most of the Tzeentchian horde turns on them. It's at this point that I realise where the blue scribes are and start to regret my decision a bit. The firestorm begins, and when the smoke clears, we've lost a lot of goats. But on the plus side, we have got a 4+ regen save, which is more armour than the goaties know what to do with. In combat, we fail our Primal Fury and flub spectacularly. Over in the centre, things go somewhat better, and the Wargore hoof the demons back into the warp. This big horror unit's been growing like zombies with all the kills it's been making. But we hear they like barbecues, so the goats bring the spit roast. I'll be honest with you, we knew this was going to be the last turn, as the shop was closing and everyone wanted to get on with their lives. It was my plan to charge the remaining goat unit at the smaller unit of horrors, thinking we'd eventually get through them, and then I'd be able to go after his scribes, or turn back to protect the flanks and rear of my Wargore unit. But I just wanted to smash Daemon, and this opportunity was too good to miss. The magic phase goes like all the others, and I failed to get any of the big spells off. Honestly, a Hogwarts education with your wizards just isn't worth it anymore. I do manage to get Wistons off on both the units in this combat, but it takes a miscast to do it, and Twist Skin detonates right in the middle of the unit. However, with all the regen we have, it's only Mr. Tumnus that takes a wound, because he's not popular enough for a lookout sir. But I'll take that. In combat, the Beastherd get Primal Frenzy! 2 games in a row they've got this now, and my Beastlord makes sushi out of the last Screamer, which is a little bit unsatisfying because no one else got to attack. Over at the barbecue, the character wall mulches through the demons, and thanks to all the regen, we take very little damage in return. We win this combat with about a mole of combat res, but obviously no one's going anywhere. That Ascendant God thing is obscenely good. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, the end of the game. Cut tragically short, and still with a lot to play for, but that's life sometimes. Really had fantastic fun playing this game. Tigris, scholar and gentleman, need I say more? Even after losing his general to ridiculously bad luck in the first turn, he soldiered on and put up a great fight. And I'm under no illusions. If that hadn't happened, this battle would have gone really differently. If that Lord of Change had lived, there'd have been bastions everywhere, and an already devastating magic phase would have been ramped up to 11. I thought Screamer Spam was a really cool idea. It forced me to play completely differently from normal, and made the game really interesting. As for my own army, I'm really liking the feel of it, and I'm glad the goaties had a better show for their efforts after the last game. As for end times, it certainly adds a different flavour to the game. That magic phase is pure craziness. It makes it much less certain that I'm going to get the big spells that this list is built around. But then the balance is I get Wistons everywhere. So it swings and roundabouts, I guess. The Reign of Chaos is just flat out ridiculous. Don't get me wrong, it works really well for Beastmen. But yeah, it's just dumb what you can do with it. And we weren't even playing it to the max. I went and read the book after this game, and it turns out that I think it's that ascendancy, god ascendancy thing. It means that if the highest 2 dice in the magic phase roll are a double, you just get to summon demons. More demons everywhere. On top of being unbreakable and super stable, it's just stupid crazy. However, the time has come for us to check out the scores.
And so it was that the Beastmen defied their fate, halting the demonic incursion in its tracks, perhaps even garnering the attention of the demon's fickle master. And so they turned back to the slaughter in Middenheim, to be butchered by a single, blind, deaf dwarf, with malaria and no legs, as tradition demanded.